Chapter 57. The Bengal babes, the Bengal ladies, back in the Detroit burbs, had all seen the weird flaming duck balls on TV. When the duck balls disappeared, the three of them abandoned their TVs and raced to their IMAX. "What the?" wrote the first one. "How the?" wrote the second one. "Where the?" wrote the third. "Hi there," wrote a fourth participant, the first time someone else had joined them since last September. Welcome to our group," wrote one of the Chaldean sisters. "Thanks, I love reading your analysis," said their visitor. "Who are you?" asked their Jewish friend. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," he responded. And then he told them. Chapter 58. Open a book. Any book will do. Try the Christian Holy Book, or the Jewish version. Maybe the Muslim Holy Tome, or even The Origin of Species. Take that book in your hands and notice how it can open as wide or as narrow as you, the reader, feel like opening it. Crack it just a little and it forms, say, a 15 to 20 degree angle. Spread its pages wide and you can pretty much get a 180 degree view. The spine of the book, depending on how you're holding it, forms either a greater than or a less than symbol. It's up to you which one it is. Pretend you're floating in midair, or on the International Space Station, or reading underwater like you enjoy doing from time to time. Your book floats along with you. Its spine, its front and its back cover form an angle. The rays of your personal angle shoot out infinitely from the base of the book's spine. You're reading other books there too. All of Richard Bach's and Tom Robbins' books accompany you. They float around, forming their own angles and rays, shooting out into the universe and beyond. Harry Potter, the Bhagavad Gita, Newton's Principia, along with the Tipitaka, are opened wide or shut narrowly. Regardless, they all form angles out into the infinite. Looking at all those books clustered together, pointing every which way, makes them, well, look like one giant sphere. Fascinating. Slowly, subtly, smilingly, Lori awoke from her dream. After getting dressed and driving over to her local $4 coffee, she phoned Dory from the parking lot while sipping. "You won't believe my dream," she said. "It was just a narrator, talking, showing me pictures." Dory couldn't contain her excitement. Word for word, she had had the exact same dream. Chapter 59. Large oversized checks for $1 million were beginning to accumulate in the city-county offices, and Marty Westman was all the richer for it. Every fifth day, he was asked to create a new one with a new date, print it out, and deliver it downtown after the previous day or night's game. When the Bengals were in Seattle, with the start time at 10 p.m., 7 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, Marty created the check ahead of time. Anna, the cute Scandinavian barkeep, who now was curled up in the bed across the room, asked why he was working when the Bengals hadn't even started playing. Marty smiled to himself and sent his graphic to the brand new printer he purchased with the sizable fees the Fidrich Foundation had already paid him. "A few more of these jobs, and I can quit farting around in that darn mascot costume," he said wearily. "Marty's a farty," mumbled Anna as he slipped into bed next to her. Chapter 60. By now, the entire nation, not just baseball fans, knew about Hope's 4 wins. Nobody had ever done this before. 4 perfect games. No one had ever been as seemingly secretive as the star pitcher, batter of the Detroit Bengals. Heck, nobody even knew his first name. A popular girl group from the 1980s, whose name sounded much like the Bengals, reworked one of their hit song lyrics to "No walks for the pitcher man." It was a corny stretch, but everyone played it again and again, earning the middle-aged women a hastily arranged summer reunion tour and enough money for their daughters' college funds. Chapter 61. There wasn't much downtime or boring space during later innings of a Bengals game these days. Usually, announcers or broadcasters keep an arsenal of things to say during breaks in the action. Baseball seemingly has more breaks in the action than most other sports. Usually, when you add up just the time the players spend throwing, catching, running, or hitting, it only comes out to a grand total of about 20 minutes. Since typical ball games last several hours, that's a lot of quote-unquote dead space. Wolf Sports announcers Chris and Keith Turner like to talk about their father. He used to love baseball. One story they like to tell involved him and his young pals who watched games at baseball's first concrete and steel field, Shibe Park in Philadelphia. During World War II, baseballs were scarce due to rationing. Their father and his friends would run all around the sparsely attended stands and retrieve foul balls. After one game, legendary owner-manager Connie Mack called their father over and gave one of the baseballs back to him after having the team sign it. And, like they were known for doing, the Turner brothers added a dramatic ending. Did the father keep that baseball throughout the years and hand it on down to them? Nope. Since it was in fact World War II and baseballs were scarce, their dad rushed right out and played with that ball until it was nothing more than just a twisted pile of fabric and string, autographs long since rubbed away. Chapter 62. Normally, Neil Rubin enjoyed writing his columns, but not as much as he enjoyed his comic strip. By now, Joe Louis had taken Milford to the high school national championship and was the first female pitcher to do so. That she pitched a no-hitter and swatted a grand slam was such a transparent example of art copying real life that Neil had more than his share of hate mail that he had to read. Since only a few people knew he was the comic's author, he didn't normally take the letters, sent to a P.O. box in Ypsilanti, as anything other than annoyances. When people criticized his writing, though, which was rare, he'd get a little more huffy. One particular note crossed his desk that was more pleasant in tone than the other ones coming in from his reader trolls. It was downright complimentary of the comic strip. There was no return address on the envelope, and after several pleasant sentences about Joe Louis and how important the letter writer felt it was that an African-American woman was portrayed in a positive light, he ended with a curious question. If you'd like to know more about Joe, and maybe what she is doing and what she's going to do next, give me a call. The number listed wasn't a local one, and a quick check of the reverse phone directory wasn't much help either. In fact, the area code was one Neil had never seen before. Chapter 63. The address wasn't familiar at first to Neil, but as he pulled into the small parking lot on the side, he recognized the inn place as the bar where he'd attended a fundraiser a few years earlier for a comrade who had cancer. Both his weekend column and his comic strip were done, in the can, as they say, so he had a bit of free time to take a leisurely lunch with the mysterious contact who seemed to have a wealth of information to share. It was okay. Neil was used to meeting people and approaching him with story ideas and everything. Usually the meetings went a lot like a game of cards. Neil would show some interest, keeping his hand close to his vest. The contact would go all in and raise the ante to the limit. Neil would ask certain leading questions, all the while not sharing whether or not he'd follow up on the information. Neil, in fact, put himself through college this way. Not gathering information, but playing poker. Really. He left his university with virtually no debt, but no real drinking buddies either. They all knew he was a card shark, or card sharp, depending on what part of the country or world they came from. He had a journalism degree, a great outlook on life, and his trademark Hawaiian shirt. The world was his oyster cracker. But in all his years on newspaper staffs, this was a new one to Neil. Somebody had ideas about his comic strip. How they knew he was behind the strip was a mystery. More curious still was why somebody would claim they knew what Neil, the creator himself, didn't even know yet. Squinting his eyes in the bar's dim light, Neil looked around and saw only one noontime patron, with his back to him in the far corner. Taking off his glasses momentarily and quickly wiping them, Neil was startled to find that the person standing right in front of him, when he put them back on, was the same person that was back in the corner. That person was extending his hand to shake Neil's. Neil hoped his eyes weren't still adjusting, but as it was, they were. They were getting larger and larger. He couldn't believe who was standing in front of him. It's you.